Hi, I'm Anna, and I've spent pretty much my whole career in marketing. I love growing things. I love growing brands. I've had a chance to work with some Fortune 100 brands, and over the last 3 years, I've served as Padgett's CMO. And Padgett is a network of 170 U.S. firms. Uh, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Padgett in this presentation to help give you a case study of how we help the firms in our network grow. And so across North America, we actually have 250 firms. We've got some firms up in Canada as well. And over the last 50 years, with all the different changes that have come about, we've really perfected a system and a playbook that is helping our firms achieve really meaningful results. Every year we're seeing dozens of our firms cross that $1 million threshold. And I like to think that in small part, it's because of the tools and systems that we give them and the support to really help them find the path to growth. And I want to share some of those tools with you today. So here's just a view of what I'd like to cover. So I'd like to talk about focus and what that means and how that translates into your marketing. I'd like to talk about networking, thinking of yourself as a thought leader, even if that doesn't feel comfortable right now. I want to propose a new approach for generating and nurturing leads that might be a bit of a departure from what you're hearing. I want to talk about how to leverage your clients in your marketing. And finally, I want to talk about thoughtful outsourcing and delegation when it comes to your marketing. And please don't hesitate to ask any questions. We'll take them throughout and at the end. And so I want us to start by taking a little bit of a step back, right? So in business, we talk a lot about the quadrants of the urgent and the important. And so I think we tend to spend a lot of time in quadrant one, which is really, dealing with crises and maybe being a little bit reactive. But today, I want us to take a step back and focus on the quadrant two activities, right? So thinking ahead, being strategic, identifying areas of leverage where we can use our existing resources and knowledge to really tap into firm growth. So if we think about this from the customer's perspective, right, what does the tax and accounting client journey look like? What are the activities and the influencers throughout that journey, right? And so I am as much a client as anyone else. I certainly don't have my CPA or my EA or anything of the sort, but I can tell you that the relationship with your accountant and tax preparer is somewhat of an intimate one and a very important one. And so it takes a lot for a client to go and seek out a tax preparer or an accountant, right? This is one of the most trusted relationships that an individual or a business owner can have. And so, if there's poor communication or a lack of communication, if there are mistakes, if the provider retires, like those all could be triggers for someone to go and seek out their accountant, right? And in so much as one can be influenced in this, the big influencers tend to be big life changes, right? So I moved, I got married, I got divorced, right? So I started a business. Those are all moments when the need is created, and those are all influencers in the decision. And so I go and I initiate my search for my accountant or tax preparer. Now, we live in a digital world. Chances are I'm going to do that through Google search. I'm going to call up my friends in my network. There's a really good chance I'm going to post the question on social media, and I'll show you how to leverage that later. But at this point, really my influencers are my social network, my peer group, my family, right? They're the ones that are going to refer me to my next tax preparer or accountant. And so with my initial recommendations in hand, I'm going to go and I'm going to try to validate them. And I'm going to do that by any means I know how, because again, this is really important to me, right? I'm going to check the online reviews, like have others had a good experience? I'm going to visit their LinkedIn profile. I'm going to see like What are their credentials? What associations are they members of? I'm certainly going to check their website. I'm going to look to see, do they have a team? What kind of work do they do? Are there any success stories? Any proof points? And then, of course, in the end, I'm going to go and I'm going to call and I'm going to have that meeting. I'm going to review their proposal. Price point factors in very, very little, right? Like at Padgett, we're pretty focused on, charging a fee that is fair and competitive, because it really doesn't come down to price so much, at least not for the clients you want to have. It comes down to the referral and the credibility, right? And the professional presence that you convey and the proposal that you ultimately put out. And so it's not surprising, given this prospect and client journey, that really when you think about how accounting firms and tax preparers find new clients, it is through word of mouth and referral from their current clients, right? It's referral from people in the ecosystem and partners, right? So like a lawyer or a banker or a bigger regional firm that does not want these smaller clients, right? And so we did a rather large survey of our franchise network early on, and it's very consistent with what they said, right? The number one source of clients is referral from other clients, right? And so that great work, that presence, that client experience is what really translates into the newer clients. And so that brings me, this emphasis on a great client experience is what brings me to the topic of choosing a focus. And there's a good chance that you've heard about, finding a niche, picking a very particular industry like microbreweries or fishing or something. But I think choosing a focus has a broader definition. That being said, choosing a focus frees up your time, allows you to standardize and create a great client experience, and also allows you to really focus your marketing efforts on areas where you're likely to be much more successful. So I'm bringing here a few examples of firms actually outside of the Padgett network to illustrate different ways that focus can happen. And so it can be practice area, right? So suppose a firm supports clients with a specific tech stack, right? Suppose that they support clients who use Xero as their GL, right? Suppose it's bigger companies that are using Sage Intacct, right? Or maybe they're doubling down on a specific set of services, right? Like we help you with tax prep. Like we've got firms within Padgett who only provide accounting services. Like that's their sweet spot. That's what they do well. They do it largely for law firms. Great. Like that is a real focus. And so similarly, you can have firms who focus on an industry, right? So they support spa and salon type businesses. Maybe they work with a lot of construction companies who have a really hard time predicting their costs and when revenues will come in given these big construction projects. And then some of them are actually across the two, right? Like nonprofit is a really big area. There's a lot of purpose there. There's a lot of word of mouth within nonprofits. And so providing, say, accounting services for nonprofits is sort of a mix of these two ways of focusing between practice area and industry. So you can get really creative in terms of how you focus, but having that focus is actually very impactful. And I want to talk about why. And so why does focus matter, right? And so when you focus, you're able to standardize the client experience, right? And so clients are seeing sort of the similar playbook, similar reporting, right? Similar cadence. They have, frankly, they have a seasonality that is unique to them, and maybe you're able to support them better in that way. You're also, given all the experience that you build up within that focus area, you're able to demonstrate real insight and expertise. And then from the client's perspective, they take out a lot of the risks and unknowns. Like if you're a big name with chiropractors, like I know an accountant near me in the Chicago area who just has been given a lot of presentations to chiropractors at chiropractic conferences, and they're just a big name within that network, right? And because the chiropractors trust each other, and they trust that this accountant knows them and knows their business and understands their issues. And ultimately, because of all these factors, you're getting much better ROI on your marketing and networking because you are focusing in on the people that then in turn are much more likely to respond to you. Great. And so that brings us to the topic of networking, right? So fundamentally, if we are to create more demand for your services as a tax or accounting firm, we want to make sure that we're getting you out there, right? Because before we can really convert the demand, we have to create it, right? So if people don't know about you, they certainly can't ask for you. And so networking with your, within your community. Now, I talk to a lot of firm owners. I've probably spoken to hundreds over the last few years. And this is something I hear again and again, from some of our top firms within Padgett to firms, who have been around for 30 years and who are incredibly successful. Having a strong presence in your community is still one of the most impactful things you can do. Right? And so it comes down to having a presence in your local chamber of commerce, right? Networking through a group like BNI. Now, these communities, they do charge membership fees, but BNI members refer business to each other. And again, like I hear from firms that this is absolutely a source of business for them, especially when they commit and they show up to these meetings. Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey has a playbook for improving your finances, as you probably know. And he runs a program where if you apply and you're accepted, right, you join his trusted provider network. And there's a monthly fee to be listed. But again, like I have heard that this is absolutely a source of new business, especially on the individual, tax and advising side. And so something absolutely worth exploring if you are seeking new clients. And then really, like if you are, again, it comes back to focus. Like if you're focused, for example, on quick service restaurants, having a presence in those industry associations is I mean, it gives you a real edge because chances are a lot of other people have not thought of this idea. And so that means like being a part of those groups on social media, going to those conferences. So this is kind of one pillar, right? Like just networking within the organizations and associations within your community. But another whole kind of pillar of this is community activism and local sponsorships. And so, having you and your team volunteer and like wear the company t-shirt goes a really, really long way. And it shows dedication to your community. I mean, what if you sponsored a client's launch party, right? And you got to give away some brochures or goodies and they were branded, right? All of this kind of helps you get in front of the people who are actually most likely to become customers. I know we live in a remote world, but I still think that the local opportunity for many firms is tremendous because a lot of our clients, a lot of business owners, a lot of people who, maybe are more affluent are still much more comfortable with the handshake, with the in-person relationship. So it's somewhat of a generational thing. And then ultimately, there's, really connecting and engaging on social media. In the marketing world, we call this social selling, but, it's just like, hey, like go on Facebook and connect with all the people in your community who have businesses, right, who maybe need a tax, or accounting advisor. And participate, right? Post regularly, like share your thoughts on new regulations or new opportunities, right, to apply for tax credits. So really show up and make sure that your profile looks professional and is up to date. In fact, social media, I think nowadays is so important that I do want to highlight a few best practices, right? And so part of it is like, just be there and participate. Participating regularly, liking, resharing, commenting, just a few times a week can go a long way. And it can also give you the pulse of what is happening in your community, in your target industry. And so, we can't live in a bubble. We have to know like what is the latest and greatest and worst of what is going on. And similarly, like I recommend following local pages. So again, like you have your finger on the pulse of what is happening, and you can be there if they need, a tax preparer or an accountant. And then really, a really important one is joining relevant groups, right? So those might be anything from, the working moms group of the North Shore in the Chicagoland. It could be the Colorado restaurant owners. There are so many groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn, where once you join and you start to monitor those, even for maybe like an hour a week, you'll see lots of opportunities start to come up, right? I mean, this is somewhat dated, but like this is just a quick list or a quick search across a group of people who are looking for a tax preparer or an accountant. Like they're there, they just can't find you right now. And so if you were to go in and just share your services, this could be a whole new source of potential leads. And so I think the last kind of pillar of tapping into your local community and really growing through referral is thinking about people in your client's ecosystem and how they can refer business to you, and of course, vice versa. And so it really doesn't have to be overly formal or overly thought out, right? But the ones that come to mind are the ones that I hear about again and again, where, Padgett firm owners have these like reciprocal relationships. It's the wealth managers, right? Like they, maybe their family office needs a bookkeeper, right? It's the lawyers, it's the real estate agent who just helped someone close on a new home, but they're from out of state, so they need a new accountant. Sometimes it's even the tax preparer who like doesn't do bookkeeping and doesn't do accounting and just wants a trustworthy person to refer to. And then it's the regional firms, right, who like every year they fire 700 clients because they're too small. But you know what? Like those are great business leads. And so I highly recommend investing in these relationships, right? And reaching out, grabbing coffee, talking about what you do, establishing the relationship, staying in touch, and maybe at some point down the road, like taking steps to formalize things. But again, I don't think that that last step is overly necessary or important. And so now I want to take it beyond, the local community, people in your community, people who can potentially refer as, existing clients or partners in the ecosystem. I want to turn it over to being a thought leader. And I don't know if you're paying attention or if you're thinking, am I even a thought leader? That is completely not me. I do what I do and I'm very good at it, but certainly I'm not a thought leader. Thought leadership is actually much more accessible than it might appear, right? Like when you think about the thought leaders, I don't know, the ones that came to mind for me are people like Tim Ferriss and the 4-Hour Work Week, David Allen and Getting Things Done. Like I can tell you that these people don't come to us with a very, impressive pedigree or credentials. I think David Allen spent like maybe 15 years of his adult life just finding himself. But what they do have in common is that they've done something pretty specialized for a pretty long time, and they've done it again and again and again, right? So it's like Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours, right? And so if you're Mary Kondo and you've been like reorganizing people's closets since forever, right? You have a lot of like know-how and knowledge of how to do that. And so then these people like Tony Robbins, right? They took the step to really articulate their know-how and their like experience and codify it into a book or a guide or a playbook, right? And so just by the process of writing it out and really like talking it through, they said, hey, like here are the principles, here are the frameworks to make this, to make this work for you. and they've been really, really effective at it, right? And so, you know, Fred Wilson, who is behind Union Square Ventures, like one of the really big VC firms behind Twitter and such, you know, he says that at 42, he started writing, and he's been writing, and just the process of writing has helped him to really formulate and take his ideas to the next level. And, you know, if he says it's paying huge dividends, I believe him. And so that is to say that as someone who does tax preparation and accounting for clients over the years, you probably don't even realize how much expertise you've built up. And, you know, I will just say that at Padgett, we started a podcast, the Federal Tax Update podcast. And when I listen to our leadership team and our franchisees record episodes of this podcast, it strikes me like how much incredibly in-depth and unique knowledge they have on everything from the ERC to entity formation to reasonable compensation, stuff that the client knows little to nothing about. And I would say, if you're thinking, oh, well, nobody wants to read this stuff, nobody wants to hear from me, they just want me to, you know, do the tax return, it's really not true. I did a somewhat informal survey of people in my network who utilize an accountant and tax preparer, and I asked them, you know, about their experience and about their relationship, right? And so coming back to what we've been talking about, that professional relationship is one of the most important relationships people have professionally, right? Between their lawyer, their banker, their wealth advisor, and their accountant. The accountant is very important to them. And there's often not a very clear line between people's business and personal tax and accounting needs. And so they're really looking to you for both of those. And I would say that they, again, I heard that they highly value the advice, right, and the tax reduction strategies. I was recently on the website of a bigger accounting firm, and literally the people on staff said that they were tax reduction specialists. And that's okay, right? Because ultimately, isn't that what people are looking for? People wish that they could get more tax planning strategy and advice from their accountant throughout the year. I mean, I have a quote here from a client who says, I wish there was more tax planning. I wish they were the driver of the relationship instead of me. And you can see in my survey breakdown there in the red, help me with financial planning and tax planning is the biggest need that people have when it comes to their accountant and tax preparer. And so I'm a big believer in this one platform, one idea, many distribution channels concept, meaning you don't need to take 50% of your time and put it towards being a thought leader. No, formulate your perspective on just a few really pressing issues that come up for your clients again and again, and then utilize those in all of these different contexts, right? So you could write a blog post. You could post that blog post to LinkedIn. You could offer it to trade journals, right? I mean, they're always looking for content. They would love to hear from you. You know, you could stream it. You could do a webinar. Now, again, you don't need a lot of people at the webinar. You just need enough people, right, for it to be worth your while. Otherwise, you can postpone it. You could do a LinkedIn Live. That's like a broadcast from LinkedIn. Very easy to do. You could appear as a guest on a podcast, right? You could submit this as a speaking pitch to an industry conference. Why not? You could share your ideas directly with your clients, right? Like send them an email. You know, this is the article you wrote. They would love to hear from you. I can tell you as a client myself. And so again, I know it's an uncomfortable thing to think about, but coming back to this quadrant 2, thinking about your goals, thinking about how to get more of the clients that you want, the clients that, you know, are not gonna nitpick over a $100 tax return, the ones that are, you know, really need the strategic advisory. This is the path to them. And so that brings me to the topic of generating and nurturing leads. And so I know that there's a lot of push out there to do SEO, right? To do the I don't know, the Google advertising, to buy up ads on social media. I think all of that can be done well, but ultimately, like, look at it from the person's perspective and what they are looking for, and think about the trust that you have with your personal network, right? So if you're going to be reaching out cold to a list that maybe you purchased or that someone recommended you try, there's really no trust there. I know I myself delete a lot of the stuff that I get in my inbox, or as in mails. It was actually so ironic. I got a LinkedIn outreach from a firm owner who I actually know, but it was clearly not them. It was someone that they hired to reach out on their behalf, and it was such a huge miss, because if I'd actually heard from them, I would have been very open to the conversation. But instead, they reached out as someone else, and it was inherently obvious. It was in some ways worse than a cold outreach from someone I wasn't connected to. But if you were to actually look at your existing contacts, right, and map out like who is in your network, who is a potential client based on your focus area, you would find, 10, 20, maybe 100 potential clients that you could be sending a personal note to, right? And you could be doing it, I mean, you could try a couple of different things, right? You could ask for advice. You could ask them directly if they're open or if they're looking for a new accounting partner. I recommend trying a few different outreach strategies. And if they're not interested right now or they don't have a need, be respectful of that. Stay in touch, share upcoming news and articles with them. Don't whatever you do, don't say just following up. That I don't think is a great approach. Again, like if you just check the news, like there's always something relevant to them, to their industry, to their use case right now. And ultimately referrals from happy customers, right? And so much as you can reach out to your customers and say, hey, like I have capacity. I've grown my firm. I'm open. I can take on a few new clients at this time. Is there anyone that you know in your network who is looking for a new accounting partner? That in some ways is the best strategy of all, because you have a trusted referral from a current or former client. And that brings me to the topic of leveraging customers in your marketing. So we do this a lot at Padgett, and I will get into that in a little bit. And so in terms of how to leverage your customers in your marketing, let's come back to the prospect journey, right? So we know that our audience for tax and accounting services are individuals, right, who probably have higher incomes, they have businesses, they have some complexity in terms of their income and investments, right? And therefore they have more complex returns, or maybe they need to do quarterly taxes and such. And so there's a lot of sensitive information that's exchanged, there's a lot of trust, and that relationship with the client, right, it lasts for years, it lasts for generations. We've had a franchisee within Padgett for a long time who worked with 4 different generations of a Boston family, right? And so they literally knew all those people, and they were probably a very trusted advisor to them. And so again, the impetus for seeking an accountant takes a lot, right? It takes something pretty dire like a mistake or just poor or absent communication. And so when people do initiate that search, they really are going to look to a referral from a friend or to another professional, right? Given the importance of that decision. And so what are they going to do? They're going to try to look for some validation that the accountant that they're finding is a credible and good partner. And so what are they going to do? I think a lot of you kind of acknowledged this when you said that updating your Google My Business profile and your reviews is very, very important. That is true, right? Because they will read your reviews. Even if they do click on an ad, they're going to spend some quality time on your website looking at your team and really looking at case studies and what they can expect from you as a client. That being said, your digital presence and how you show up is really important, and I think cannot be discussed separately from how your clients factor into your marketing. Now, this is just a Google Ads dashboard, but what I'm trying to show you here is that on average across the US every month, there are over 100,000 searches for an accountant. There are over 200,000 searches for a CPA, right? And so that's 300,000 searches for an accountant or a CPA across the US every month. I think there's, to go on a tiny bit of a tangent, there is an interesting conflict here where you can see that the searches spike in March and April. So when people are most looking for an accountant or tax preparer, those same accountants and tax preparer are the most underwater. But that's a discussion for another time. But they are looking for you, right? And so how you show up online, how you showcase the customer experience really, really matters. And so that brings me to the question, which of these two firms would you trust? Now, these are two firms that operate near me. And I mean, look at the firm on the left, like I am sure that they are wonderful people, and I don't mean, anything negative about them, but I just don't see a lot of information about them, right? Like, I don't know what their client experience is because there are no reviews. I don't even know who the owner is because there's no photo. I don't know what services they provide, right? There's such a wide variability of service offerings. And so I think that taking the 10, 15 minutes to log into your Google business profile to verify it if you haven't, to maybe put even a few like Q&A questions in there that you might have been getting from clients, right? Putting your photo, maybe putting some photos of your office if that's relevant, right? Or photos of you, your team, your clients, right? Like if they're open to that, your hours, your website, those are all, they're such small things, but this is the stuff that kind of stands between firms and clients much more than we'd like to think. So at Padgett, we have a really big focus on customer success, right? And showcasing customer success stories. And there are, many reasons for this, but they're also very tactical. And so these are just a few of the clients that we have across Padgett. We support our franchisees. We will write, we will record, we will publish and promote these stories for them. But this is something that you could easily do for yourself. And, it really takes like a 30-minute interview with the client, having a little bit of a discussion guide on like, why did they come to you? What were they struggling with? How did you help them? What were the results and the KPIs, or like the key performance indicators, right? And where are they now? And so those case studies, once you develop them, and I would say like develop them for the clients that are in your area of focus, so that you can, when you're pitching a new client, you can easily point to like 3 relevant success stories and testimonials of other clients that are directly relevant to their challenges and their pain points. And so post these stories on social media, right? Tag these companies. And so now, not only are you getting visibility, they're getting visibility, their network is seeing the story, right? And so now you've kind of, it's a win-win, right? Your success is their success. So we talked a lot about Google My Business. We talked about customer success stories, but I think it's important to note that, again, like with the hundreds of thousands of searches that are happening, online for you, it's really important how you show up across the web. So now, I don't necessarily think Yelp is the most important place to spend your time, just kind of giving its diminishing importance as a digital reviews platform. But there's like a strange SEO phenomenon where your Yelp reviews and your Facebook reviews show up really high in search results. So again, I think it's worth going on Yelp, making sure to verify and own your profile, update your services. If you have any negative reviews, like address them head on, right? And be respectful, but also like speak up for yourself. And provide accurate contact information, show that you're open for business, add the photos, right? Like you might not have updated this since COVID or maybe even earlier. But again, your Yelp listing, there's a really good chance of showing up in search results. And the same for Facebook. Facebook reviews get spammed a lot. So either hide them, make a complaint to Facebook. It's really easy to do in the interface, or both. But certainly, revisit your Facebook profile. I don't think that you necessarily need to have a Facebook company page. Like, I would only do that if you are willing to invest in advertising on Facebook. Otherwise, make sure that your profile is professional, states that you're an accountant or a CPA or an EA, right? Make that really clear on your Facebook profile, on your LinkedIn profile, on your Twitter profile if you have one, because you really are the business. And the company page, I can tell you, the Facebook algorithm does not favor Facebook pages because they want you to pay for advertising. And so your personal presence is very much synonymous with your business in that context. Especially on LinkedIn, like depending on the industry that your clients are in, they may have a very strong presence on LinkedIn. Like, let's just take real estate agents, for example. And so how you show up on LinkedIn, how you post, what you comment on, your, group memberships, your, certifications, right? Like if you're a Zero partner, make sure that that comes through really clearly on your LinkedIn profile, because I can tell you people are checking it. And so, in closing, you're all busy, we're all busy. And how do you balance doing this yourself versus delegating it? And I've struggled with this myself, right? Just as a marketer, like, how do you know what to delegate and what to do yourself? I think it's important to overextend yourself for a limited time and make sure that you're getting this right and that you're doing things well, right? And so I think, that being said, some things you probably never want to outsource are who you're connecting with on social media, right? And how you're connecting. Again, it's a very people totally catch on and don't hire a social media manager to go and fake connection requests on your behalf. I think there's a lot more value in 10 good quality connection requests a week where you have meaningful conversations. And if 5 out of 10 of those become clients and each of those is worth, say $1,500 a year to you, right? That's a really good ROI on the hour you spent connecting with them on social media. So I strongly recommend not outsourcing this type of activity, social media connecting and social media selling. Thought leadership, like, it's very tempting to outsource this, but I think that your clients really value you and your experience and your expertise. And so even if you're just drafting up an article, sending it out to your clients where it's relevant and giving them tactical advice, like, that is infinitely more valuable than generic content, right, that is sourced from elsewhere. Now, there are some things that you can outsource, right? And I think, for example, having someone go through all of your connections on Facebook and LinkedIn and helping you build that list of target leads that you can then reach out to makes perfect sense, and it's not a great use of your time once you've established who you want to connect with. Doing conference research, conferences you want to attend to network, or conferences you might even want to speak at or sponsor. Again, someone can do that for you. Someone can submit your speaking pitch. Someone can monitor like the 10 most important social media groups for you. I know a lawyer, an immigration lawyer, who hired an agency for like $500 a month to go and track Facebook groups. And whenever a question about immigration came up, they sent him a list every day, and he was in there, and he really built his business that way. And that's a great strategy. Some tools that I want to recommend, certainly Upwork, if you're looking for someone to do data research. 99 Designs can spin up like a one sheet or some sort of infographic for you. There are some very talented designers on there. Happy to share specific names. StreamYard is a great platform if you want to record a customer success story or video. Canva, you can have a designer create a few social media posting templates for you. Calendly or Mixmax or HubSpot Calendar makes it really easy for prospects to book a meeting with you and eliminates all that back and forth. You can set aside a few hours a week for prospect meetings and kind of automate some of that. And Monday is just a really great tool to stay on top of all this and like stay in that quadrant 2 and bring a little bit of like project management to this. All right, well, everyone, thank you so much for your time today. Your time is valuable. I just want to close with an offer for you. We at Padgett, we would love to welcome some new members to our community. And so I want to just put it out there, we want to help firms grow and be successful. And we have an amazing leadership team. We've got Roger Harris and Amanda Aguilar, Jeff Phillips. These are people who have been in the Accounting Today Top 100 many times. Amanda serves on the IRS Advisory Committee. We've been doing this for a long time, and we really think that we can offer firm owners a playbook and a system for success. And so, if we can talk, we can explore, and you can join us before the end of 2023. I do want to say that we will launch a marketing campaign worth $2,500 for the firms that join us before the end of the year. Well, everyone, thank you so much for your time. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, thank you so much for joining today, and have a great rest of the day.